When you first start a 9-player or 6-max game, you'll be presented with a menu screen like this one. If you're playing from a mobile device or a browser without Flash, the menu screen may look a little different than this, but all the same options are there. Please note, however, many of the options I'll describe in this video are disabled until you get your All Access Pass. Just click this button over here to sign up. Now back to the game. First, select your table and difficulty level in this drop-down. Each table has a different color scheme and a background image. If you find all of that distracting and just want to play on a plain black background, just check this No Theme box here. Next, select the blinds at which level you'd like to play. Note that this does not affect the difficulty of your opponents. Simply pick the blind level at which you're most comfortable. You can use the player mix drop down here to determine what kind of opponents you want to play against. You can make them more passive or more aggressive if you desire. Now I'll skip over the advisor settings for the moment. I'll come back to that. Okay, the hands to deal drop down has several purposes. First, it's a time saver. You can tell the software to only deal you playable hands or raising hands as I've shown here, so you won't have to spend as much time folding pre-flop. If you're having trouble playing suited connectors or pocket pairs, you can select one of these options to practice only with suited connectors or pocket pairs. This choice here for Enter a Custom List allows you to customize exactly what hands you want to be dealt. For example, if I wanted to practice only with Ace-King suited and Ace-Queen suited, I'd enter it in the box just like I'm doing here. Now the Choose Your Position drop-down lets you practice out of one position at the table if you really want to do that. This is often called freezing the button. For example, if I select this here, I'll always get dealt into the big blind, so I can practice just from the big blind. Finally, I can enter how many chips I want to start with. Please note that currently you're limited to 100 big blinds. There's a small checkbox over here that says Fixed. If I check this, I'll start every hand with the exact same stack size. Now suppose I wanted to practice playing with 40 big blinds. You could enter that here and check the Fixed box. As you can see, your chip stack will get reset to 40 big blinds after every hand. Now before I click the Submit button to get started, let's go back and look at the advisor settings screen. First, let's pick my advisor from a drop-down box. Each advisor has a playing style associated with them. In this next area, you can choose when you want to get advice. So select here if you only want advice when you actually click the advice button in the game. I'll show you where that is later. Or you could select here if you want advice every time it's your turn to act. Finally, you could select here if you want to make your decision first and then have your advisor pop up if he or she disagrees with you. Okay, finally, there's this box here for Show Summary of All Advisors. In addition to the advisor you selected above, if you check this box, you can take a peek at what all the other advisors would have recommended as well. I'm going to check this box now so we can see what that looks like later. Okay, well let's click the Submit button and proceed to the game itself. Alright. The buttons in the bottom right corner let you act once it's your turn. Again, this will look somewhat different if you're on a mobile device, but all the buttons are the same. If you don't like the hand, you can just fold it before it even gets around to you and proceed to the next hand. Make sure that you have this zip to end checked for this to work. If you actually want to see every hand played out by your opponents, just uncheck this option. Now, if you want to make a raise, there are several ways to adjust the amount. You can type any amount you want in your box, like I'm doing here. Alternatively, you can just adjust this slider. Or you can use these small buttons up here. This will allow you to make the legal minimum raise, bet half the pot, bet the size of the pot, or just go all in. In the top right corner here, you can adjust the speed of the game, turn off and on the sound effects, and you can also exit the game when you're finished. While you're playing the game, if you want to take a peek at your opponent's cards, just click on them. Now, I would recommend using this sparingly because, of course, you can't do this in a real game. A better option is to use the Peek at End checkbox down here. This button, when it's checked, will show you all your opponent's cards and the remaining board cards, but not until after the hand is over. Okay, up here in the top left, there's the Game Options button. We've seen most of these options already. Here you can pick a new advisor, adjust what hands you're being dealt, or adjust the dealer button while you're in the middle of a session. I just talked about peeking at your opponent's cards. If you want to avoid that temptation, uncheck this box. Finally, you can check this box here if you don't want the hands from this session saved to your database. A good reason for that would be if you don't want it to include in your statistics at all, because you're just playing around and messing around during a session. Okay, also up in this top left is the View Stats button for a quick look at your opponent's stats and your own personal ones. There's also a Get More Chips button, and that's when you want to bring more chips to the table or change what table you're at altogether. Okay, now when the action is on you, you can ask your advisor for help by clicking the Advice button here. Now, if you recall, earlier on in the video, I showed you how to make your advisor automatically pop up every time it's your turn to act. If you selected that, then this button won't be here. Now let's take a quick look at the Advice pop-up. Now you can see here, when I click it, my advisor's telling me to raise, and he briefly tells me why. Now, if I agree with him, I can click OK, take this advice, and it will automatically execute that action. If I disagree, I can still go back over here and choose a different action. One thing I want to clarify on this, if you take the action of your advisor, that's what's going to figure into your statistics in your training plan. So I would really recommend mostly going with your own decisions if you want to see what areas you need to improve on, because if you're taking your advisor's advice, it's going to give you a training plan based on that instead of based on the decisions you personally would have made. Now, if you remember, there was a checkbox on the advisor configuration screen to see a summary of all the advisor's actions. Let me show you that checkbox again. Okay, now down here, I can see a summary of what all the advisors would have done. Now, you'll notice that most of them would have raised as well, but not everyone agreed. Now, finally, you'll see a button that says Brain over here. This feature lets you see inside your advisor's head and learn from their thought process instead of just getting their advice. It's so powerful that we have an entire series of videos devoted just to the Brain button. So I'm not going to go into this right now. It's a very powerful feature and it's very complicated. You'll also notice that on the flop and beyond, there's a button that shows Show Range next to each of your remaining opponents. This is also part of the Brain button feature set, and it's covered in a separate video. Now, so in a nutshell, what this does is it lets you look at what hands your advisor thinks your opponents are holding. There's also this small odds button here. This button shows the current pot odds when it's your turn to act. Now, on the flop and turn, it will also show you the odds of improving on your hand on the next card, which is really useful when you're on a flush or straight draw. I find that when I'm practicing, if there are things I don't really understand, clicking this button can help me learn the odds very quickly. Now finally, if you want to make a note on a hand or mark it for later review, just wait until the next hand starts and then click this Tag Previous Hand button. When you do that, you can enter a tag, which is simply a category for that hand, and any notes you'd like to make. You can see I'm doing that here. Remember, every hand you play is automatically saved to your personal online database, so entering a tag is a really good way to help you find the hands later. So you can see that what I did here is put it in the category For Review. So now you can see how that shows up on the My Saved Hands page, and I'll go there now and show you. Alright, so that's just some of the features on this game, and it describes how to use it. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you get your All Access Pass so that you have access to all of these great features. Now start training and get ready to ignite your game.